Welcome to Staffworks Explained. If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. In this video, we'll be talking about Lamu palm oil gamble, where we ask, can Kenya turn $1 billion import bill into a homegrown industry? This is where we talk about the second, where we say that the second largest import bill after petroleum is crude palm oil. Kenya imports roughly $1 billion of palm oil, and we have been mentioning Lamu in terms of petroleum crude oil. Now here we talk about crude palm oil, where we say that there is a statistic that should make Kenya uncomfortable. Every year the country spends huge amount of foreign exchange importing edible oils, while vast stretches of its own agricultural land remain undeveloped or underutilized. At the center of that contradiction is palm oil, a commodity that Kenya consumes on a massive scale but produces only marginally. Government statistics show that Kenya imported about 784,636 tons of crude palm oil worth 107.5 billion Kenya shillings. Malaysia supplied more than 3/4 of those imports. Now, Lamu County wants to change that equation. Plans are reportedly being finalized for a $100 million palm oil investment in Witu Nyongoro Ranch, with the proposed project expected to create approximately 3,000 jobs. If it materializes at the scale being discussed, this could become one of the more consequential agricultural industry investment in coastal Kenya. But before anyone celebrates, there is a more important question. And the question is, can Lamu turn a promising investment announcement into a commercially sustainable palm oil industry? That is where the real story begins. From import dependence to local production, that's the movement. Kenya's dependence on imported edible oil is not merely a trade statistic. It represents a large recurring demand that domestic farmers and processors are currently failing to capture. The country imports crude palm oil for refining and subsequent use across the food, cosmetic, soap, manufacturing industries. That the opportunity therefore is much bigger than simply planting oil palms. The ambition should be to create complete value chain: seedlings, farmers, plantations, harvesting, collections, transport, crushing, refining, packaging, and downstream manufacturing. If that happens, money currently leaving Kenya to purchase imported oil could circulate through Kenyan farms, transport systems, or transport companies, processors, manufacturers, and workers. That is the economic argument for the Lamu project. Palm oil is not a crop that can be planted today and harvested commercially tomorrow. And that creates the first-hand questions. Where will the palm fruit come from? A US $100 million processing facility is only as valuable as the agricultural supply behind it. If there is sufficient or there is not enough locally produced fruit, factory becomes dependent on imported feedstock, and that undermines much of the import substitution argument in the first place. The project therefore needs a credible plantation and farmer supply strategy. And the question is, who owns the land? Who will grow the palms? Will production come from a company-owned plantation, independent farmers, or an outgrower model? Who provides the seedlings? Who finances farmers during the years before the trees become productive? Who guarantees the purchase of the harvested fruit? These questions are not peripheral. They determine whether the investment becomes an industry or simply another processing facility waiting for raw materials. Why Witu matters. Witu Nyongoro is a significant place because the proposed investment is being linked to an existing ranching and agricultural landscape in mainland Lamu. Lamu has historically been discussed primarily through the lens of the port, tourism, fisheries, conservation, as well as the wider Lapsset corridor. Agriculture has received far less attention. That could now become different or change. Successful palm oil program could introduce a different economic engine, one based on farming, processing, industrial value addition, rather than simply land infrastructure development, and that matters for employment. The projected 3,000 jobs is an attractive figure, but it needs to be interrogated rather than repeated. How many are permanent? How many are seasonal? How many will go to residents of Lamu? How many will require specialized technical skills? And how many additional jobs will be created outside the factory through farming, transport, equipment maintenance, logistics, as well as packaging and retail? The greatest economic impact could ultimately be indirect. A processing plant surrounded by thousands of productive farmers would create very different development outcomes from a large plantation employing workers directly. That decision should shape the project design from beginning. The factory is only one piece of the project. That is where project management discipline becomes important. A serious palm oil investment should not be treated as one construction project. It is a program made up of multiple independent components. There are nurseries, there must be agricultural extension services, roads capable of moving harvested fruit quickly. There must be collection centers, there must be storage and logistics systems, processing capacity. There must be reliable electricity, water management, and there must be a guaranteed market. Oil palm fruit is highly time sensitive, and after harvesting, delays between harvesting and processing can affect the quality and economics of oil produced. So the question is not simply whether a factory can be built in Witu. It is whether the entire supply chain can function efficiently from farm to the processor. That is much bigger undertaking. Kenya has been there before. There is another reason, and that's this means that there's another reason for caution. Kenya had tried to develop commercial oil palm production before, including efforts in the coast region. Government agricultural documents identify oil palm as an emerging crop in areas including Lamu and Kwale, while also highlighting historical constraints around processing and market access. That history should inform the new project. The country has no shortage of agricultural strategy. What it has struggled with is turning strategies into commercially integrated production systems. That is where the proposed Lamu investment could either succeed or repeat an old pattern. If the government and investor concentrate on the factory and leave farmers, roads, finance, as well as market to sort themselves out, the project will be exposed. If those elements are developed together, the economics become much stronger. Then comes the environmental question. No serious discussion on palm oil in coastal Kenya can avoid the environment. Oil palm developments has generated major environmental controversies globally because poorly planned expansion can lead to deforestation, biodiversity loss, and constraint on water resources. Lamu is not an ordinary agriculture landscape. Its coastal forest, wetlands, marine ecosystem, and biodiversity are economically and environmentally valuable. The project therefore needs a credible environmental social impact assessment as well as a strong land use controls. Where will plantation be located? Where is land suitable? What areas are environmentally sensitive? How much water will be required? How will agricultural chemicals be managed? What happens to processing waste? How will biodiversity be protected? The objective cannot be simply to replace an import bill with an environment cost. If Lamu is to become a serious green economy, sustainable agriculture story, environmental safeguards must be designed into a project before expansion begins, not added after problems emerge. And now let's look at the bigger economic opportunity. If properly executed, the proposed investment could become much more than a palm oil factory. It could become a demonstration of what agro-processing and value addition can do for Kenya. Instead of exporting agricultural potential and importing finished products, Kenya would be capturing more value domestically. Farmers would earn from production. Transporters would move the crop. Processors would create industrial value. Manufacturers could use locally produced oil. Workers would earn wages. Government would collect taxes. And forex that would otherwise leave the country could increasingly circulate within the domestic economy. That is the real price. But there is a major caveat. $100 million is still an investment proposal. Until the financing is committed, agreements are signed, land arrangements are resolved, environmental approvals are obtained, construction begins, and project eventually starts. Kenya has learned the hard way that announcements are not projects. Lamu should therefore welcome the opportunity without lowering its scrutiny. The right question should be asked now, before money is committed and before thousands of hectares are transformed. Who owns the project? Who financing it? Who carries agricultural risk? Who guarantees the market? How much of the value created will remain within Lamu? Will local farmers participate meaningfully? Will local workers acquire technical skills? What safeguards are there to protect the environment? And most importantly, what happens if the numbers do not work? If those questions are answered honestly, the proposed Lamu palm oil investment could become a landmark Kenya agriculture project. The national objective should not simply be to produce palm oil, it should be to build an industry around it. Because the real measure of success will not be the size of the factory, the number printed on the investment announcement, or the number of jobs promised. It will be whether Lamu can turn land, labor, capital, infrastructure, and agricultural knowledge into a durable domestic value chain, one which is capable of reducing Kenya's import dependence while creating wealth locally. That is the opportunity, and that is also the test. So thank you for reaching this far. If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. You can also watch other videos that we have made on Lamu and other areas in East Africa and Africa as well. So let's meet in the next one.